My job is the arrow, not the wind. That sounds simple until you watch how people actually chase a goal. They do the work, then quietly hand their piece over to the result. Most people do not fail because they lack ambition. They fail because they let the future move into their head and start charging rent. A promotion becomes proof. A relationship becomes salvation. A launch becomes a verdict on whether their life is going anywhere. Then reality takes its time, stays silent, or says no, and they fold under the pressure of their own expectation. That is the trap. So, here is the better path. There are 6 pieces to it. 4 Stoic principles rebuild manifestation from the inside out. Then 2 practical tools make it usable in ordinary life. When your phone is buzzing, your stomach is tight, and your brain is trying to bargain with tomorrow at 11:30 at night. The goal is not to want less. It is to pursue what matters without letting the outcome own your nervous system. My job is the arrow, not the wind. The arrow and the wind split the whole problem in 2. Once you see that, most manifestation advice starts to look less like power and more like a very polished form of dependency. A lot of it teaches people to lock their eyes on the outcome until wanting turns into strain. They stare at the promotion, the text back, the money number, the perfect launch, and call that focus. But after a while it gets weird. Their mood starts following signals they do not control. A delay feels personal. A setback feels cosmic. An external event becomes a verdict on their value. And that is where the leak begins. Stoicism offers a cleaner trade. You do not ask reality to validate you. You train yourself so well that your effort gets sharper, your mind gets quieter, and your identity stops swinging with every result. The inner citadel is the source. Your standards are the source. Your discipline is the source. That creates the strange advantage. The less you clutch the outcome, the better you usually move toward it. And that is what makes the first principle unavoidable. Set internal targets, not external bullseyes. Arrow, not wind sounds clean on paper. It gets messy fast when you are sitting outside an interview room, smoothing your shirt for the 3rd time, hearing your own thoughts get louder with every passing minute. I need this job. If I do not get it, I am behind. This has to work. You can feel the body join the panic. Dry mouth, tight chest. Too much future packed into one door opening. The same thing happens with a business launch. This project has to prove I am not wasting my life. It needs to hit. If it fails, it means something about me. That is the moment the goal stops being a target and turns into a verdict. And that is where performance starts to rot. The Stoic correction is blunt. Separate the arrow from the wind. The archer controls stance, breath, aim, and release. The archer does not control the gust, the judge, the market, the timing, or the mood of the person across the table. Most suffering here comes from blending those 2 zones into one emotional mess, and that blend is expensive. So the assignment changes. Not, I must get the job. I will prepare thoroughly, answer clearly, and carry myself with discipline. Not this business must succeed. I will build something useful, test it honestly, and improve it without drama. It sounds almost too simple, which is why people resist it. They think anxiety proves seriousness. Usually it just burns fuel. Use this line before any high-stakes effort. I do not control the result. I control the quality of the attempt. Then score yourself only on preparation, presence, composure, and follow through. Leave the outcome off the sheet entirely. Once the outcome stops looking sacred, the mind finds a new way to distort it by turning the goal into a legend. Use objective representation to strip the legend. Facts over fantasy sounds obvious until you hear how people talk when they are scared. The language gets inflated first, and then the nervous system follows it like an obedient dog. A founder says this launch is everything. An applicant says this company is my only chance. Someone in a breakup says, if I lose this person, I lose my future. Nothing practical can happen after that. The event has stopped being an event and turned into a myth. That is the trap. Once the mind adds destiny, identity, and permanent meaning, the body reacts as if a normal setback is an extinction event. It feels dramatic because the wording is dramatic, and that is more common than people want to admit. The Stoic move is not to become cold. It is to become accurate. Strip the theater out of the sentence. A dream job becomes a role with a title, compensation range, and responsibilities. A business idea becomes an offer, a runway, a cost, and a set of risks. A rejection becomes one negative response from one person in one context at one moment in time. That shift is small on the surface, but it changes what your mind can do next. Once the legend is gone, problem solving can come back. You stop talking like a prophet waiting on fate. You start talking like an operator working a real situation. Try this in writing. Put down the dramatic version of the fear, then cross out every loaded word and rewrite it using only facts, numbers, and timelines. If the sentence loses heat, good. That means your judgment is returning. But even a mind that sticks to facts can still get shaken by one thing it hates most: surprise. Perform a pre-mortem of failure. Failure without shock is the goal here, because most people do not get destroyed by the event itself. They get destroyed by the insult of surprise, by the feeling that reality had no right to do this to them. You can hear it in the way people talk. I am staying positive. Usually that means something less noble and more fragile. It means I do not want to look directly at what could go wrong, so the mind avoids it. Then the rejection email lands on a Tuesday afternoon. The client backs out after sounding warm on the call. The launch underperforms after weeks of build-up. The account balance drops harder than expected. The event hurts. Then the shock adds a second hit. That second hit is often the one that scrambles judgment. The Stoics had a cleaner answer. Premeditatio malorum is not pessimism. It is exposure training for the mind. You spend a short, controlled moment rehearsing the setback before it arrives. Not to become gloomy, but to become less fragile. Picture the interview failing. Picture the project stalling. Picture the sale falling through. Picture the person saying no. Then ask the only question that matters. What remains in my control immediately after this happens? That question changes the whole temperature of the mind. It is awkward at first. People almost feel superstitious doing it, as if naming the setback invites it in. Usually, the opposite happens. The nervous system calms down because it has already visited the possibility and survived it in thought. You stop acting like success is owed to you and start treating every current advantage as temporary, useful, and worth handling well. Use one line before any meaningful risk. If this fails, I will still have my judgment, my character, and my next move. Write a simple card with the worst realistic outcome, your first response within one day, and the trait you will practice if it happens. Once failure stops feeling like personal annihilation, you can do something even harder and far more powerful with the outcome itself. Embrace the outcome with amor fati. Outcome becomes material the moment you stop asking whether reality obeyed you. That shift sounds subtle, but it changes everything after the result arrives. You worked for months. You did the interview. You made the pitch. You shipped the offer. Then the message comes in, and it is either yes or no. Most people treat that moment like a final ruling. Did I win? Did I fail? What does this say about me? That is where peace gets handed over. The Stoic question is different and much more useful. What did reality give me, and how will I use it well? Amor fati is not passive acceptance. It is disciplined cooperation with what is actually here. If the result is favorable, good. Use it without getting arrogant, lazy, or emotionally hooked on repeating it. If the result is unfavorable, also good in a harder way. It becomes material for endurance, humility, sharper strategy, and cleaner self-command. The result changes, but the job stays the same. Use what arrived. That is the break from outcome obsession. A good result is not your identity. A bad result is not your obituary. Both are data. Both can train you if your inner government stays intact. This is what emotional independence looks like in real life. Not pretending not to care. Caring deeply about the work while refusing to let the verdict define the worker. There is some friction here. People hear this and think it means becoming numb. It does not. It means staying honest enough to face the facts and steady enough to remain useful inside them. Keep faith with the larger mission, but deal plainly with the immediate reality. Use this line right after any result. Treat every outcome as material, never as identity. Then ask 4 questions. What happened? What is useful here? What gets trained in me now? What is the next honorable action? The ideas are in place now, but without a working protocol, they stay admirable and unused. Run the sovereign manifestation protocol before any big goal. The Inner Citadel protocol matters most right before pressure hits. When the old script comes back fast and sounds convincing. You are outside the meeting room. Hand on the door, and the mind starts its usual routine. I need this. What if I blow it? What if this decides everything? That spiral feels urgent, which is exactly why it needs a procedure. Run 4 quick steps. First, define the internal target. Ask what is actually under my control here. Second, describe the event objectively. Strip it down to facts instead of drama. Third, pre-mortem the setback. If this goes badly, what remains available to me right after? Fourth, release the verdict. Decide in advance how you will use either outcome. The whole thing takes less than 2 minutes. And that brevity matters because no one wants a complicated philosophy lecture while their pulse is climbing. This is manifestation with self-command instead of wishful thinking. No bargaining with the universe. No attempt to hypnotize reality. Just emotional order before effort. That is also where Stoicism parts ways with the law of attraction. One says your inner state can command events. The other says your inner state should command you. That is already enough power for one person to handle. Use this line to remember it. Clarity, effort, readiness, release. Score yourself from 1 to 5 on each step before any high-stakes event. Anything below 4 gets 1 correction before you go in. Calm before the event helps. But obsession has a way of sneaking back in through the ordinary hours of the day. Build a daily detachment ritual so the goal stops owning you. Action over rumination is where this gets real, because obsession rarely looks dramatic in the moment. It looks ordinary. You check the numbers before coffee. You replay one awkward sentence from a meeting while brushing your teeth. You lie in bed trying to negotiate with tomorrow as if worry were a strategy. Half of what people call working on the goal is often just emotional rumination wearing work clothes. That is why detachment cannot be treated like a mood. It has to become a ritual. Lee, in the morning, write one internal standard for the day. Focused, patient, accurate is enough. At midday, interrupt the drift with one question. Am I working? Or am I bargaining with the outcome? That question can feel annoyingly honest, which is usually a sign it is doing its job. At night, close the loop with one sentence. What was in my control, and did I honor it? This small structure keeps the goal from moving into your identity and redecorating the place. It builds emotional sobriety. The calmer you are, the less energy gets burned on fantasy, comparison, and panic. Measure devotion to process, not emotional intensity about results. Then track one thing for 7 days. Compare minutes spent on concrete action against minutes spent on rumination. Push that ratio toward 3 to 1. There is still one misunderstanding left, and it makes people dismiss this whole approach too early. A lot of people hear action over rumination and make the same mistake right away. They assume letting go of outcomes means lowering the bar, wanting less, or drifting through life with less fire. That is not detachment. That is surrender. Real detachment is much more demanding. Passivity means weak effort. Stoic detachment means strong effort with cleaner emotions. You still prepare hard. You still aim high. You still care about the result. You just stop turning the future into a courtroom where your worth is on trial every day. That split matters, because the detached person is often the one who performs better under pressure. They are less needy, less dramatic, and harder to shake when something goes sideways. They do not lower standards. They lower inner turbulence. The anxious person chases results to feel secure. The Stoic builds security first, then pursues results from strength. You can see this happen in ordinary moments. Someone wants the outcome so badly that they start performing for the result instead of doing the work in front of them. Their timing gets off. Their tone gets strained. Everything feels heavier. Then watch the contrast when the focus shifts to preparation and composure. The work gets cleaner. The body settles. The result still matters, but it no longer owns the room. Call it the sovereign manifestation experiment. Keep it simple for 7 days. Pick one live target that actually matters right now. An interview. A sales call. A fitness goal. A creative project. A money target. A difficult conversation. Then track 5 lines each day. What is my internal target? How do I describe this goal without drama? What is the worst realistic setback? What is the next action fully under my control? After I act, did I release the verdict or keep clinging to it? At night, score yourself on clarity, composure, action quality, and detachment. The awkward part is that you may realize how often you were measuring mood instead of discipline. That is useful data. After 7 days, do not ask first whether you got the result. Ask whether you became less dependent, more disciplined, and more effective. My job is the arrow, not the wind. That line only matters if you live it when the stakes are real. When the inbox is quiet, the result is unknown, and your mind wants to start pleading with fate again. Stoic manifestation is not wishful thinking. It is self-government. You build a mind that can aim clearly, work cleanly, and stay standing whether reality says yes, no, or not yet. That is the real advantage. You become calmer under pressure, sharper in action, and much harder to break when life refuses to follow your script. There is some friction in this because most people are used to measuring hope by intensity, not by discipline. Start with one sentence and make it operational. My job is the arrow, not the wind. Then do your part with full effort. Keep your standards high, and let reality answer when it answers.